We're going to be opening up Lightroom for the first time. If you haven't already added it to the dock, go ahead and do so. And the first time that you come into Lightroom, it's going to take you through this kind of guided tour just to introduce you to some of the parts. So take a couple of minutes and look and see where collections are and how the navigation is going to work and where you're going to add things like keywords. It'll just help you familiarize yourself with it. But what we need to talk about is importing. So go ahead and click on the import button. And the first way that we're going to look at it is importing things that are on the computer. So if you've already got things in downloads and things like that, you could go ahead and import from there. I'm just going to go ahead and import a folder that I've already put inside of my pictures folder. There's a couple things we want to set in the import. The first one that we're going to do is go ahead and check off the button that says Build Smart Previews. We also are going to leave the one that says Do not import duplicates. We're not going to do anything with collections, and we're not going to change anything in the Apply During Import. Just to get familiar with the import window, let's take a quick look at some of the buttons down here below the photos. We've got an option for check all or uncheck all. Also, there's ways of zooming in and zooming out, so I can look at either the grid view or at the single view. By clicking on one of the photos, it will highlight the photo. If I want that one larger, then I can click on that single photo. Other things that we want to kind of get familiar with in here is how to make the thumbnails bigger or smaller. So I can click on this thumbnail slider and adjust the size of my files. And then there's also options for how to sort the files. So sometimes they come in out of order, so you may want to go to capture time. Otherwise, in this case, I'm just going to go ahead and leave it off. But you may need to do that if they're not coming in the way you want. Since they're coming directly from the computer, we only have one option here, which is to add, because we already have the file on the computer, so we're just going to choose to add it to Lightroom and not make a duplicate copy. We'll look at these other options, copy as DNG, copy and move, once we get to coming directly off the card. So now that we've got all of our settings in place, we're just going to go ahead and click the import button, and that will start to bring those files into the Lightroom environment. And so as we wait, you can kind of see that there's a bar up at the top that is moving along. That's part of our import process, and it'll just take a minute or so for it to copy those files into the computer. The second way that we can bring files into the computer is through the SD card. So I'm going to go ahead and click import again. And this time over on the left, I'm going to choose Untitled, which is the name of the SD card that I selected. Smart Preview and things are still checked. So this time I'm actually going to choose Copy as DNG because the files that I shot were raw. And that will create a digital negative. If I had JPEGs, I would just want to choose Copy. So again, Smart Preview is already checked. Do not import duplicates is checked. And we're going to look at going ahead and using this rename file. And I like to use the one that just says custom name, but there's also custom name with sequence or original file, XYZ. And so I'm going to go ahead and just type in Yosemite 2018, and that will rename these files. The other thing that I want to do is change the destination of where it's going to go. So by default, it wants to go into pictures, and it wants to organize by the year and the date. But I'm going to go ahead and say I want it into a subfolder. I'm going to call it Yosemite 2018. And then the other thing, notice even though we have that new file down here, there's also all the dates and separate files for each of the different dates that are a part of that. So I'm going to go ahead and go up to the top here. And before clicking import, I'm going to change one other thing. It says import by date, so I'm going to choose instead into subfolder, or into one folder. And so then click import. And then that way, all of those files will end up on the Macintosh hard drive in a single folder.